Magandang umaga po sa lahat. Naririnig niyo po ba ako?
Yes, ma'am. Loud
Yes,
and
ma'am.
clear
Loud and
po.
clear.
Thank you po. Good morning po sa lahat. Welcome to day 2 of our online orientation and cascading of the 25th Gawad Kalasag Guidelines, Toolkits, and Checklists. So we thank you for your active participation yesterday po. And then today we will continue with the presentation of the remaining categories under the part 2 po of 25th GK Special Awards Checklist. So before we start po, may we kindly ask everyone for a short photo opportunity lang po. Please turn on your cameras so we can capture a group photo for today's orientation. Okay po, wait lang po. Magre-ready lang po yung tech po to capture po each panel po. Okay po, ready po? First panel po. 1, 2, 3, smile po. Next panel po, second panel. Okay na po. Then third panel po. Next po, fourth panel. Sixth panel po. And then lastly, thank you po. Okay po, thank you. And then before we begin, few quick reminders lang po. Please rename your Zoom name to follow the format, region, name, office, or agency. And don't forget po to register your attendance po. Nasa group chat na lang po siya. Thank you so much po. And then kindly keep your microphones on mute unless you're asked to speak. And feel free to use the chat box for any questions and clarifications po. So today we begin the day with the higher education institution category to discuss the criteria, documentary requirements and scoring process. Let us welcome Attorney John R. Jacome of Cocopea. Pero before po yun, sorry, we're going to have a prayer muna po, short prayer po. So let's put ourselves in the presence of the Almighty, in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. So gracious and loving God, we thank you for the gift of another day, of opportunity to serve, to learn, and to grow together as one community to make our tours real. We are grateful for day 1 of this orientation, and now as we begin day 2, we ask for your continued guidance and inspiration. Bless each participant gathered here today. May our minds be open, our hearts be engaged, and our spirits remain steadfast in promoting preparedness, safety, and compassion in all our communities. As we cascade the principles of Gawat Kalasag, let us be reminded that resilience is not just built through policies and protocols, but through unity, shared responsibility, and unwavering desire to protect life and dignity. We entrust this day to you, and we move forward with purpose, passion, and peace. Amen. So to formally begin our program, I would like to welcome again Attorney John R. Jacome of Cocopea to discuss higher education in this institution category. Welcome po, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. I would like to thank the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council under the Office of Civil Defense for inviting me to share on the guidelines, toolkits, and checklists for the Gawad Kalasag uh, 25th Gawad Kalasag Awards. Well, just to introduce myself and the organization that I represent. Remember, this is higher education, so we are all under the Commission on Higher Education. Ours would be COCOPEA, which stands for the Coordinating Council of Private Educational Association of the Philippines. We're composed of around 3,000 private educational institutions all around the country. And of course, together with us in the higher education are the state universities and colleges or SUCs. And of course, the LUCs, which stands for local universities and colleges. So all in all of these comprise what we call the higher education institution category. So if you are assigned to be a validator for this category, definitely you will be visiting colleges and universities all around the country. So is the checklist for the higher education institution category for the 25th Gawad Kalasag for this year. I think as far as I can remember, last month we had revised actually this checklist, but I learned that it will not be applicable this year. It will be implemented next year. So what will still be applied as far as this year is concerned is the existing checklist, which I'll be discussing to you right now. So please feel free uh, to ask questions if you want, or probably you can reserve it at the end of the session. It would be a very brief uh, discussion just to go through with the different toolkits and checklists and entertain questions if you have some clarifications later on. So let's start right away with policies and plans, which is accounting for around 30 points. Okay. So for letter A, we are talking about issuances, policies, plans, memorandum, resolutions, orders, or guidelines regarding disaster risk and management. So for most would be A 8.1. There should be an issuance. There should be issuances made by the Board of Regents and HCIs regarding disaster risk reduction management. The public schools, we call them Board of Regents, but for private schools, mostly because most of them are non-stock, non-profit, like Catholic schools. Some are also profits, stock and profit, but they usually call their board as either board of director for stock and profit schools and colleges, or board of trustees for non-stock, non-profit. So just to give the counterpart of what you usually know as board of regents for public schools. So you just make sure that there should be issued board resolution, preferably signed, of course, signed resolution by the board. Will a resolution, for example, signed by the school head enough? Then, of course, what is suggested here is that it should be coming from the higher ups. In other words, from the very board of the school. In other words, the highest governing body, which is the board. So, of course, the points, maximum points would be given to the ones that are released by the board itself. Okay, so as you can see in the presentation slide here, so it's not just enough. There should be the presence, as they claim, of these different subject matters are concerned, but also very important is are the pieces of evidence, okay, supporting the subject matters that we are asking. So in other words, what you can see therefore in especially the third column, would be the pieces of evidence that we need to look into, especially when we visit as validators later on in the respective campuses. So 8.2, initiatives of the HEIs, meeting conducted towards issuance of resolutions regarding DRM. So take note, therefore, of the minutes of the meeting, but of course, more points would probably be given if the notes, okay, or the minutes are frequently being done, and not only about frequency but also the substance, and the minutes should be updated because some schools are still providing minutes that are not covered within the year. But remember, we are trying to account for year 2020, 2025. So therefore, we just make sure that they're updated, and there is also some substance and frequency as far as the minutes are concerned. Letter B, plans that would highlight the existence of DRRM in the curriculum of HEIs. Now, if you notice, this part is somehow given a greater weight of 8 points. Why is it so? Why is curriculum or syllabus approved by the board given a greater weight when it comes to the point system, the points that are given to this category of plans and policies and plans? Because the reason for that is it somehow assures that the campus really inculcate to the students, in other words, properly cascade to the students, imbibe in the students the importance of disaster risk reduction and management because they are embedded in the curriculum. Because if this subject about disaster risk and management is embedded in the curriculum, it means to say that they are being taught in the classroom. There are supplemental activities, whether outside or inside of the classroom, that are being tackled in order to address whatever concerns they have when it comes to disaster risk and management. So that's why this is given 8 points. Okay, what about this letter C? Plan that ensures the continuity of education even after incident. By the way, let me just make a comment on the curriculum or syllabus because as I've mentioned, this is given a great weight. So when you visit therefore the higher education institution, colleges and universities, you could probably ask yourselves in order for this to be given proper points, how many courses integrate DRRM in the curriculum? Is there for example, a subject matter on climate change adaptation, on uh, earthquake, flood, and other calamities resilience? Is it only part of the general curriculum? Well, if that is the case, it only shows that the students are aware and oriented about it, but it's in a general form. Okay, but in some schools, when we visited last year, there was even a college which actually offer a DRRM degree, which we gave bigger points because it means that the school is very serious about disaster risk and management because they even offer a course on the DRRM. So those are the things that you need to consider when it comes to the curriculum. Now, for letter C, what we need is a contingency plan, okay, or education continuity plan. And what is this? This education continuity plan is definitely to mitigate the impact of multiple hazards. So that's why what we actually are looking for here as evidence would be approved contingency plan or education contingency plan. For example, is the college or is the university implementing, for example, an online method of delivery of teaching in case it is disrupted by a calamity, or at the very least, a hybrid setup in order for the education to continue, for the learning to continue, even if there is the existence of the calamity. So we are very familiar that even if it's just extreme heat, di ba? Heat index is very high. Cancellation of classes, especially here in Metro Manila, are occurring. So does the school have, for example, a backup learning methodology to cope with the disaster? That would not be probably applicable to fire because if the school is raged on fire, wag naman sana, then it means that they cannot, really do hybrid setup. But I'm thinking about like earthquake, for example, or even flood, or even heavy rains, where it's still possible to have online classes. So you have to look for it under letter C. Letter D, restoration plan in case of disaster, building back better principle in the plan. So what is this all about? It is all about the existence of approved rehabilitation and recovery plan. Well, of course, most institutions, higher educational institutions, who join after the Gawad Kalasag, they know very well about this. So that's why chances are they will actually be presenting this rehabilitation and recovery plan. Just make sure that they are really substantive and not only for the sake, made for the sake of submission. So letter E, Information Education Campaign, EIC, an advocacy plan that encompasses all hazards present in the HEIs. The thing that you should take note about this is that we are not saying naman that the more the better, or but what I'm saying is the campus should be resilient to the existing calamities apparent in their place, and based on that they must be able to produce this different information education campaign and advocacy plan. So like emergency workplace preparedness, bulletin boards, brochures, social media account, advisory. So all of these should be approved and implemented EIC. And preferably, not only limited to the basic ones, but all, at least all, all disasters that may occur in that particular place. Because there are specific calamities that are apparent in some places but are not in other places. Like, for example, if you are living near Tagaytay, if you're a school near Tagaytay, then the Taal volcano should be accounted for as one of the nature-related disaster. In other words, volcanic eruption or probably earthquake. But if you are also living or nearby, for example, a coastal area, then disaster that involves or dangers that involves being near in a coastal area like tsunami or flood, okay, should also be accounted for. All right, so that is as far as the plans and policies are concerned, and that's, as I've mentioned a while ago, 30 points of the total score. So in other words, we always say that a good plan is already half of the solution to the problem. So that's why it has a bigger, more or less a bigger points, 30 points. But plans are only plans. They have to be executed. So therefore, we have the next part, which is capability and capacity, which accounts for 50%. So in this area, the question that we are asking ourselves is, are there personnel, faculty members, utility person, who have been trained or have educational background on DRR? Okay. Now, most schools and universities would say they have, but of course, we are not, as validators, just contented with that. We need proof from them, the piece of evidence that would prove that they have trained personnel, faculty members, and so on, who are actually adept to help in case of an emergency. So A.1, capacity development or training activities. There should be trained DRRM personnel, resource or focal person, students, faculty members, staff, and utility. And in fact, in this rubric, you give already points right away. For advanced, that would be 2 points. For basic, that would be 1 point. So, trained on what? Kasi sometimes they would say that if I'm already satisfied the training, if I am trained on this particular aspect only. Well, of course, first and foremost, it should be the base. You should prioritize the basics when it comes to disaster response and management. Like, for example, emergency first aid training, basic life support training, basic rope rappelling, resilience 101 training, for example, fire safety training, gender responsive disaster risk training, and so on and so forth. So how do we prove this? Then it's the time when you have to ask for certification. Certification from local DRM officer, training certificates, IDs, attendance sheet, photo documentation taken during the activity. Now, as you can probably notice, photos, photo documentation, attendance sheet sometimes can be easily fabricated. So therefore, I just think that you really need to ask for certification properly authorized by properly signed by an authorized person. Why? So that you can counter check, so that you can validate whether the signing authority is actually indeed authorized to sign that certification. 8.2, percentage of trained personnel. So this one is all about numbers. So if personnel in an educational institution involved in risk reduction management is 75% up, then you give 2 points. If it's only 50% to 74, 1.5 points. If it's 24 to 49%, then 1 point. I think there's no argument about this. It's about numbers. So if they reach the particular number, 75% up, then 2 points. Otherwise, they will be getting 1 point only. Or if they did not even reach 24, then that would be 0. Okay. To continue, then we have this A.3, DRR focal person or representative. Now, if there is an existence of appointed or designated focal person, then you give 1 point. But of course, as proof, there should be some designation or appointment letter to that effect. Most naman are capable of producing that. But it's only 1 point, of course. For 8.4, we are talking about a personnel knowledgeable in the preparation of basic disaster report. So, well, this one is, we are looking for a trained DRRM personnel to prepare basic disaster report. And if there exists a person like that, then you give 2 points. All right, 8.5, personnel capable of conducting rapid damage assessment and needs analysis. I think this is the one that we have some suggestions for amendment, but it will be applicable next year, not right now. But for now, let's still apply this one. So we're looking for a trained DRRM personnel to conduct rapid damage assessment and needs analysis. 8.6, okay, students actively participating to NSTP and or university college. Now, this would not be very difficult to produce because NSTP is a requirement for higher education. But we should make sure that there is a proportionate number of students participating in the colleges or universities DRRM activities. So, as proof, probably you can look for special orders coming from the school, or you can also look for actual number of student participants. Obviously, that would be produced by attendance sheets. And for example, if it's actually NSTP, then enrollment form. So these are some of the documents that you can ask later on, just to prove that the students are actively participating in DRRM activities. For 8.7, the suggestion is there should be a conduct of drills and exercise. But our rubrics is telling us that it should be done quarterly. So in other words, at least 4 times a year. And the rubric is very strict here. If you comply with the 4 times, then you will get only 1 point. But if you miss, then you will not be given any point. So it appears that if you made only 2 or 1 or even 3, not quarterly because it's only 3, then you will not be given a point. So you have to complete the entire 4 conduct of drills and exercises about DRRM. So, and that would be 1 point. For 8.8, personnel capable of conducting risk assessment. Okay, so, well, of course, there is a comment that it's very hard to secure a certificate of training, especially the one dealing with risk assessment, geo-risk. And I think this is one of the things that they suggested to be amended, but it will be applicable next year. But for now, anyway, it's only 1 point. So let's just make sure that the certificate is produced by the person in relation to this, okay? A personnel capable of conducting risk assessment. All right, so that's for the first part. So we go to the second part in this category, which would be the programs and activities. So in short, so a while ago we were talking about the personnel, the training of personnel for the programs to be executed. But right now we are also talking about the programs themselves, programs and activities themselves. Are the colleges and universities okay armed with sufficient programs and activities to carry out the DRRM functions? So this is now the area where we are going to consider right now. Okay, so B.1, DRRM training. The college or university must be able to produce a training DRRM training development plan, which is approved and implemented. So since this is something that is sanctioned by the college, as I mentioned a while ago, it's something that is supported, in fact, mandated by the Board of Regents or the Board of Trustees of the school. But definitely, if that is the case, there will be an office relegated or assigned to execute the DRRM activities of the school. So you look for that. Approved and implemented DRRM training development plan, which should be supposed to be a comprehensive document about what the institution is planning and at the same time executing in order to be resilient when it comes to emergency. So the next table would deal with the area of assessment, indicators, and means of verification when it comes to risk assessment and mapping. So what are we looking for when it comes to this? Of course, an approved risk assessment and mapping report, which will account for 2 points. B.3, formulation of DRRM plan. We are looking for approved DRRM plan, meaning plans, program, projects, and activities, which will include description and outputs. So it should not be something that is only theoretical, but you must be able to and assess for yourself that this plan is actually a concrete one, strategic, and capable of being carried out. Okay? So hindi lang ito puro plano, but something that can be really be implemented for the betterment of the school. B.4, hub. Okay, there should be a hub for DRR information sharing. Is virtual hub sufficient? I doubt if that is the case. So when you visit, for example, for validation, make sure that there is at least a space to accommodate this information hub. Di ba? It's a functional hub. So therefore, it's something that exists not only virtually or in social media, but rather physically in the campus. B.5, integration of DRRM in the general education. So a while ago, I mentioned about curriculum, which I mentioned to you that it somehow is given the greater weight of 8 points. It appears it is reiterated here just to emphasize the importance of this. So what would you be looking for in this case would be an implemented, integrated DRRM curriculum. Okay? But it mentions here general education. Okay? It's true that there are very few, who actually offers a degree on DRRM. I think I mentioned only a college in Davao we visited last time. But at least at the very least, in the school's general curriculum, there should be an integration of something that is connected to disaster risk and management, or probably climate change, or probably emergency preparedness, and so on and so forth. And then, yeah, naputol ito, pero it's the same actually. It's actually connected. Integration of DRRM in general education curriculum and or areas of specialization. That's B 0.5. Okay, and the final part of this portion would be other resources and structural resilience, letter C. So for C-1, okay, this is now, of course, we're talking here about physical, concrete, okay, physical infrastructures. So for C.1, DRR office established buildings. Okay? So you have to ask yourself, does the school, does the university or college have a permanent, okay, DRR office? Okay? Well, of course, we are not expecting that it should be a building, at least an office where there is a semblance of permanency. Because if it's only tentative, you only give 1 point. But if it's permanent, you give 2 points. And what should you be looking for would be a physical structure of DRR office building, accounting for 2 points. Okay. Second would be budget allocation on programs and training. Now, some of the schools would actually include this in the programs and activities that I have mentioned to you a while ago. But just make sure that since this is about budget, it is something that has monetary figures to it. Okay, in other words, what you will be looking for would be approved work and financial plan for DRRM programs. Now, some school would say it's confidential because it's something that involves money, but in the end, we want to make sure that they really spend some fund with this one. Anyway, it's something that is announced to them beforehand. It's part of the rubrics. So they have to show to you that they are actually allocating funds for this. That's the budget allocation. For CDAS 3, design of existing infrastructure. Now, based on my experience as validator, this is one of the things that some schools, even universities, are finding it hard to produce. There was even a time when they asked us to wait because they are still securing it from the city mayor's office. But we have no choice. Huh? The required evidence for this part is an LGU, a local government unit approved building structural plan. Why is it so? Why are we demanding for an LGU approved building structure? The reason for that is because if it passes through the LGU, if it's approved by the LGU, it means to say that they have that the building has been somehow inspected by the engineer's office, the city or municipal's engineer's office. In other words, it has undergone the rigorous inspection by the appropriate government agency. Okay, so that's why we are not only looking for any structural plan made, for example, by an architect or by an engineer, but rather an approved, LGU approved building structural plan. So we insist on that. C.4, search and rescue and or medical equipment. Okay, so in other words, if there is an established office of the DRRM, we are expecting that in that office or probably adjacent to it or annexed to it would be medical equipment and search and rescue operations equipment. So you can check, especially during validation, if they exist. But another important thing aside from the existence of those supplies and equipment is the question whether or not they are being used. And how do they prove that they are using these supplies and equipments? Then you have to request for utilization log, the utilization logbook. Well, some schools would produce, for example, printed ones, but it's more believable if the logbook is handwritten because it really shows the transactions and the actual utilizations of these different supplies and equipments. So you look for the utilization log. Next to that would be the EIC materials on hazard specific to the institution. I think I already mentioned this a while ago when it comes to plants. But here, there should be an existence of EIC materials on the different hazards that are confronting the campus. Earthquake, flood, calamities, uh, heavy rains, for example, storms. Okay, so so we prefer therefore specific hazards. So it would be better if the school can produce different materials related to different hazards. And we will give the appropriate points based on the substantiality. And in this case, we might say the number of hazards being answered by these different EIC. And then we have research documentation and best practices on DRRCCA. This is higher educational institution. So therefore, one of the tenets of a college as mandated by CHED would be research. Tatlo yan actually. Number one, instruction. Number two, research. And number three, community service, community extension. But on our part, okay, we are concerned about the research. So you have to look for if there are published researches or documentation of best practices when it comes to disaster risk management. So, and since it's a college, hopefully there are a lot of teachers there, faculty with MA and PhD degrees. So, we just hope that they can produce one. Huh? Kasi it's part of the rubrics, research material, research published material. Okay, so sometimes these research materials are already published in the journals or even via books. Then you can also ask if they are existent. All right, letter D, demonstrated capability or risk assessment and vulnerability. But just to give you a distinction, this first part, if there is no disaster response operation, because the next slide would be if there is disaster response operation. So let's start with without disaster response operation. So what are these demonstrated capabilities? Now let's start with the point one, which are available site maps. Multi-hazard, vulnerability, capacity, resource, and risk maps. So in other words, we are looking for various susceptibility maps, okay, that are extant in the educational institution to be able for them to be given at least 2 points for this. Most of them naman can produce that since they're actually using it as a guide for their students and stakeholders. Second is a database of element at risk. So what are these different element at risk usually when it comes to the disaster? This would be people. Of course, we are the first susceptible to damages and disasters, people. Chemistry laboratory, okay. Library, records, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what are we looking for here as evidence? We're looking for a database, and therefore there should be an inventory of the element at risk here. So you should be able to see when you visit them really an inventory of this database of people, chemistry laboratories, and library records they can produce. D.3, SOPs. Okay, are there manuals in place for specific hazards? As I've mentioned to you, these manuals are expected to be separate and distinct from one another. In other words, the manual for fire hazards, the manual for natural calamities, and even it can be differentiated from one another. In other words, for example, earthquake manual. What do we do if there's an earthquake? What do we do if there is a fire? What do we do if there is a tsunami, if that's applicable? And even man-made calamities. For example, what do we do if there is a bomb threat? Okay, or fire, right? So it should be specific. Should be specific in the HAI. So all of this should be armed with standard operating procedures. And if they are available, then you give 2 points. Okay? If not, then 0. Availability of timely, accurate, and reliable response. Okay? So you should look for evidence of availability of emergency response team. Okay? Most schools, colleges, and universities do have even a bulletin board, okay, showing who are in charge when it comes to emergency preparedness. So, but make sure that you are able to validate it by, well, specifically meeting the persons who are composing the response team. And since you're visiting there, most of the time, they will actually be greeting you just to show their availability. And in fact, they sometimes showcase how they respond during emergencies in your very own eyes. Diba? All right. So let's just make sure that we are able to validate, for example, the existence of emergency response team. D.5, the identification of evacuation or relief distribution point centers. This is separate or distinct from the office. Huh? Okay? What we are looking for here is an appropriate designated evacuation or relief point centers. Now, some schools would, for example, just assign a classroom, just assign a gym where they are claiming that is to be the evacuation and relief center. But just make sure that you can properly also assess if they are indeed, okay, adequate designated evacuation centers. Okay, not only for the sake of compliance, but rather something that is really capable of all this answering the need for the persons affected in case of calamities. Okay, and then we have D.6, right? D.6, which is determination of clinics and hospitals to address the casualties. Now, of course, it's obvious naman that not schools, not all schools, unless you are a very rich school like UST or UP probably, do have their own hospitals, di ba? So if that is the case, mostly they would claim that the hospital we are referring to here is actually in-house. It's our own. But most schools, okay, would only refer to availability of clinic or a nearby hospital. Now, if that is the case, if they are claiming that it's a nearby hospital that they are seeking for refuge in case of emergency, so therefore you ask for a memorandum of agreement. Okay, you ask for a memorandum of understanding, MOA or MOU. Okay, or if there is an outsourced emergency response team that would somehow help them in case of emergency, then they must also be producing a MOA, proving that there is such an existence of the support from an outsourced emergency response team. So, kailangan hanapin natin yon. MOA with the nearby hospital, if that is the case. All right. Now, as I mentioned to you, there is also what we call demonstrated capacity, but this one is with disaster response operation. Okay. So, since it is almost similar, although this one is actually already by implementing it, I'll just probably quickly read through this just to make sure that we also cover this. So again, the reiteration of available site maps, and the proof or evidence for this will be displayed approved multi-hazard vulnerability, capacity, and resource and risk maps. Again, database of elements at risk. What do you need? Inventory of element at risks. Okay, this E3, which is not existent in the first one, real-time, near real-time, and end-to-end reporting system. So therefore, you must be looking for records on previous reports, okay, of the presence of real-time or near real-time end-to-end reporting system. For E.4, issuance of public advisories to students or faculty members. So you will be looking for records on previous public advisories. Now, most schools would actually show you text messages, okay, or existence public advisories in the school social media, Facebook or website. So that could be, but there should be ready and established advisories that would show that they really inform the public about any disaster if that happens. Now, E.5, support of faculty members, staff, and students in terms of emergency financial assistance, waiver of tuition and other school fees, grants, and aids. So first, make sure that if they are to be given a point for this, that there is an existing policy to this effect. And not only that, not only the policy, but actual receipt by the faculty member or staff of the financial support from the school. So therefore, you have to look for the record. Nabigyan ba ng tulong ang mga bata at saka mga teacher ng school in case of emergency. That would be one point. E.6, coordination with appropriate agencies like intervention, extension of resources, and so on and so forth. So again, what you will be looking for is a signed MOA. Okay? A partnership or extension of resources, whether it's financial counseling and others. And finally, it again mentions NSTP. Tapping NSTP students, faculty members for disaster response and respondents or volunteers. So you have to look for list of activities related to disaster response. And that could be proven by the attendance sheet of NSTP students or faculty members participating in disaster response. Most of them would actually just give you, for example, a record of the earthquake drill or fire drill that they have conducted. Well, let's just make sure that they are substantial to at least merit a point. Anyway, this is only 1 point. Okay. And then finally, the third one, emergency preparedness and response, which is 15 points. So what are we looking for here? Letter A, available contingency plan, site, emergency mechanism. So self-explanatory. Available evacuation plan and early warning system. Make sure that you can ask for an approved evacuation plan. Existing organized emergency response team. Most of these are actually duplication. I'm already mentioned a while ago. So letter D, periodic trained DRRM teams. So again, the reiteration of training development of personnel for DRRM. Periodic conduct of safety inspection. So you have to look for approved periodic schedule of conduct of safety inspection. And then periodic maintenance of installation of faculties, facilities, approved conduct of scheduled maintenance of installation facilities. All right. And lastly, we have partners. Okay. Partners. Do we have partnership with other entities, with other stakeholder, to ensure that we are linked or collaborating with other entities to make sure that we are helped in case of emergency? So first one would be NGOs, business private sectors. So what are we looking for here? Sign MOA with these NGOs, business private sectors, and people organization. 2 points. And then resource mobilization. Active resource mobilization. We look for an evidence of that. Now this one, LGU alliances. Again, approved memorandum or agreement with the LGU. Remember, this one is not LGU of the DRRMC of the LGU. We're talking about the city, municipality, provincial, LGU. Okay? So if there exists a memorandum with them, then that is meriting 1 point. Okay. And specifically, therefore, for DRRM or DRRM or city DRRM is number 4. So this one is the one that you have to look for, an approved MOA with a different disaster risk management of the province, city, or municipality. But that is not the same with the LGU. and make sure that it is also somehow updated. And to cap all this, to summarize, okay, so the way we allocate, therefore later on, when we check, counter check, and eventually validate, to summarize, would be for policies and plans, you have to allot 30 points, capability and capacity 50 points, emergency preparedness and response 15 points, and partners would be 5 points with a total of 100 points. And of course, the numerical equivalent plus the adjectival rating is stated there, whether excellent, very good, good, and needs improvement. And finally, just make sure that you are able to put your name, position, and agency, the date of the validation when you are assigned to do it. All right, tamang-tama. It's actually 10 o'clock. All right, so can I entertain questions still? Miss Moderator, thank you for listening and
All questions are duly noted lang po, sir. Thank you so much.
okay. So anyway, nasa chat box naman, so probably you can answer it. But definitely, I was able to finish the presentation of checklists and toolkits and guidelines for the higher education. Thank you very much and good morning.
Thank you so much, Attorney John Jerome ng Cocopea po.
That's Hakome, ha? John Hakome.
John Jacome po. Sorry, sir. Thank you so much, Attorney.
You're welcome.
Okay po.